Hi, I'm Jen. Thanks so much for checking out my channel, Your Best Work Life. Here we talk about all things that have to do with writing the perfect resume, preparing for that interview, and furthering your career goals. Today I'm going to talk specifically about 10 things that you can do to help you prepare for an interview. Being prepared is everything, so get out a pen and paper, jot these things down. They're going to set you up for success when it comes to your next interview. Number one, do research on the company. You want to make sure to take some time to look into the company, check out their industry, how big are they, what's being said out there, what are they doing, where are they in their longevity in terms of their career history, are they just getting started or have they been around for 20 or 30 years. Do some research in advance on the company so that you can speak intelligently about that company and ask some really meaningful questions. Don't feel like you need to know everything about the company before going into an interview. An interview is a great opportunity to ask questions that you have and learn more about the company, but you don't want to go in knowing nothing. So make sure you've reviewed their website, looked at their LinkedIn profile, try to get a sense for how long they've been in business, how many employees they have, and you can even, if you look at LinkedIn, you can see where those employees fall in terms of skill sets. So if they have a really large accounting team or a really large technology or marketing team, that will kind of give you a sense for how the company operates. So do that, take that time, do some research in advance before you go into an interview. Number two, make sure to research the decision makers. I referenced LinkedIn a moment ago as a great tool to do research on the company, but you can do a deeper dive. As I said, you can see how many people there are in marketing. Look through some of those different profiles, and you want to look at the profiles specifically of the people that you know you will be meeting with in an interview. So that does mean you need to ask who you will be meeting with before going into an interview so that you can take some time to do some research. Again, you don't need to know everything about their background, but have an idea of how long they've been with the company, what did they do prior to that, maybe do you have anything in common? Did you guys go to the same college, or maybe you're a part of some of the same groups? Any common ground that you can find or speak to throughout the interview is going to help you. Number three, review the job description in advance and reflect on how that relates to your skills. So you want to look through that job description and try to really get a good understanding of what skills you feel really confident that you have and that you would have no problem knocking out if you were to get the job. But then also look at those things where you might fall a little bit short. You want to go into an interview with a really good idea of how comfortable you feel if you were to get that job. You know, where are those areas where you feel you would excel, and where are those areas that might be a challenge for you? You want to go into the interview knowing that so that you can be prepared to speak to that or ask questions as it relates to those different strengths and or skill gaps. Number four, network with current employees. I've actually done this myself in the past when I was looking at making a career change, and I really gained some invaluable insight into the company and what it's really like from a day-to-day perspective. When you're going through the process, you're going to be meeting with the decision makers and leadership and asking questions, and I'm sure they're going to provide some great information, but that is a one-sided view. That's their view as a manager who's managing their team. So I always find it very valuable to speak to someone who's actually in the seat. Now, if there's not someone else who's in a similar role to what you're applying for, try to find someone who might be in the same department or a department that might partner with the opportunity that you're applying for, but it's really helpful just to get some insight, and maybe they'll give you some insider tips that will help you prepare even more for that interview. Number five, compile a list of questions prior to the interview. So with these questions, you want to think about a handful of things. You want to think about your strengths, your weaknesses, what challenges you might encounter if you were to get this job. What would you be excited about? Think about all of these things, so good, bad, ugly, everything in between, and make sure you've written out all the questions that you have. Now, these can be questions about the company, about the culture, about the job responsibilities, about the career path, about compensation or benefits. There's a million different questions that can come up in the interview, but you want to make sure that you have questions to ask. It is a really bad thing to come to the end of the interview and not have any questions to ask, because it shows that you really don't care that much or you're really not that engaged in the process. So go into the interview with a nice solid list of questions. That way you always have something that you can ask at the end of the interview. Know that a lot of your questions might be answered throughout the interview process, and that's okay. but just make sure you have enough questions so that you can still come back and ask them questions when the time comes. You want to ask questions about really everything that you're wondering about. And this could be things, again, that you're excited. It could be challenges. If there's certain concerns that you have, things that are maybe red flags, things that you saw on Glassdoor, or maybe from your networking that you did with a current employee, if there's any concerns that you have, the interview is the time to ask those. I've mentioned this in the past, but an interview is a two-way street. Yes, the company is trying to identify if you're a good fit for them, but you should be trying to identify if the company is a good fit for you. So make sure you're prepared with those questions. Don't leave any stone unturned. You want to make sure you're doing your due diligence, you're getting all of your questions answered before you're in a position to make a decision if they were to offer you the job. So ask all the questions that you have and be prepared with those going into any interview. Number 6, know the dress code. You want to go into an interview being dressed to impress, making a great first impression, so you need to know what their dress code is. It is perfectly okay to ask whoever is coordinating that interview for you, ask them what the attire is on a typical, on a day-to-day basis. And you want to dress up just a notch from whatever their dress code is. So again, if they are a casual environment, dress it up to business casual. If they're business casual, maybe dress it up to professional and throw on a suit and tie or just a blazer if you're a female. But you always want to make a great first impression and be dressed just slightly above whatever their dress code is so that you will be memorable in the best sort of way. Number 7, ask if you should be prepared for anything specific. Again, this question is perfectly okay to ask, and I think a lot of people are maybe afraid to ask that because it'll make them seem like they don't know what to expect or whatever the case may be. Every interview, whether it be a specific interview or the entire interview process, is going to be a little different for every company, so it's perfectly okay to ask. If there's anything that you should be prepared for or anything that they would like you to be prepared with and bring with you to the interview, ask in advance. Again, you always want to be prepared. You want to make a great first impression, so don't be afraid to ask those questions to set yourself up for success. Number 8, really take some time to anticipate what questions they may have for you. Of course, they're going to ask you about your background. They're going to ask you to walk them through your career history, your career path. Be prepared to explain why you left different opportunities. Be prepared to ask questions about what you've accomplished, about your strengths, about your weaknesses. They're likely going to ask you about failures and how you've overcome that and how you've learned from those situations. So really take some time to think through these things. Be prepared for some questions that they might ask you in advance. That way you're not caught off guard, you're prepared to just answer their question without hesitation, and it's going to just lead to a much smoother interview, and you're going to feel better and have more confidence going to that interview right from the get-go if you've taken that time to give some thought to what questions they're going to have for you. You know they're coming, give it some thought, and be prepared with your answers. Number 9, have references ready. All employers check references. They all do. They're going to want to talk to someone else that you've worked for in the past or that you've worked with in the past to validate that you can actually do what you say you can do, that you are who you say you are, and that the values and things that you have articulated throughout the interview process are consistent with what you actually represent. So make sure you have a handful of references that you're prepared to share. Make sure you've spoken to your references. Give them a heads up that you're applying for different opportunities. Tell them a little bit about the opportunities if you have the information to do so. But make sure you have those references ready and don't be surprised when a company asks to speak to former employers. Number 10, know your numbers. Now, when I say know your numbers, I mean know your salary requirements and also know your results. So especially if you're coming from a sales background or marketing or even accounting, any kind of responsibility or job that you've had where you were held to metrics or you had some kind of quota, you were measured in some way. So be prepared to talk through those numbers and results that you've been able to achieve in your previous experience. Going back to salary. So you want to know what your bottom line is. What are you looking for if you were to get this job? And you really want to think big to start off with. You want to think about, what am I ideally looking to make? What is that ideal number where I'm going to feel really excited about taking this job, taking that next step in my career? Hopefully that's an increase for you. On average, when people change jobs, it can be anywhere from a 5 to 10% increase. Again, every company is going to be a little bit different, but if you're making a career change and going to a new company, there should be an opportunity for you to increase your income. You want to know where your numbers need to be. So know what you absolutely need to make to afford your life, to afford your bills, because you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're not going to be able to afford your life and then you're fretting about money all the time. That's not going to be good for anybody. So know your bottom line, but also know what you're really trying to achieve. You want to start high, be prepared for a company to try to negotiate a little bit. So really go after what you're looking for, but know where you might be comfortable settling if you need to go back and forth, based on that opportunity and how that resonates with your various values. So to quickly recap, the 10 things that you should do to prepare for every interview. Number 1, do research on the company, know who they are, how long they've been in business, and what they're all about before that interview. Number 2, do research on the decision makers. Look up the different individuals that you're going to be meeting with. How long have they been with the company? What are they responsible for? What is their educational background? And look for any commonalities that you might share with that person that you can speak to in the interview. Number 3, review the job description and job responsibilities and reflect on how that relates to your skills and what you bring to the table so that you're prepared to speak to that throughout the interview. Number 4, network with current employees. This is a great way to get some behind the scenes insights and certain little tips and tricks to help you prepare even more for that interview. Number 5, compile a list of questions, whether it be regarding what you're excited about, what you're concerned about, the day-to-day, the company culture. Be prepared with those questions so that you have all of your questions answered when it comes time to making a decision on if that company or that job opportunity is right for you. Remember, interviewing is a two-way street. It is as much about the right fit for you as it is if you are the right fit for the company. Number 6, know the dress code. Make sure you're dressed to impress and feeling confident going into that interview. Number 7, ask if you should be prepared for anything specific in advance. It is okay to ask that question, and you are better off going in and knocking their socks off and wowing them by being prepared and ready to show what you can do and how you can contribute to their organization. Number 8, anticipate questions they're going to have for you. So remember, they're going to ask you about your experience, strengths, weaknesses, and any concerns that they may have regarding your experience and where it may fall short. Be prepared to speak to those things. Number 9, have your references ready. They're going to want to validate your experience and what you've said to them throughout that interview process, so have those references ready. And number 10, know your numbers. Know what your salary requirements are, know what your salary goals are, and be prepared to speak to the actual numbers, metrics, and results that you have achieved in your career so far. I hope these 10 things were helpful for you in preparing for your next interview and will absolutely help you in advancing your career. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment below, and subscribe so you hear about all my latest videos. If there's something specific that you need or certain questions that you have, drop it in the comments below. I'll absolutely get back to you. Again, I'm Jen. Thanks so much for tuning in to Your Best Work Life, and I'll talk with you guys next time.